Hello guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a full face of drugstore makeup. I've got a lot of tips and tricks along the way. We're doing this easy everyday look, and I'm also going to be throwing in some bits and bobs of reviews on newer products at the drugstore. I feel like I've had a lot of time to test these products, especially with base. I know it's hard to wait, but I really want at minimum like 2 to 3 weeks, and if I can go even longer than that before I review it, that's optimal, because I feel like base products are so finicky. They can look really great on certain days, really bad on certain days, and you really got to figure out how to prep, how to set, how to do all that. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about in this video, so we're just gonna get into it. Starting off with base prep. So I think a good daytime skincare routine goes a long way, especially if you can find like the perfect sunscreen. That works better than any primer. And the same goes for like a moisturizing base milk. Those are always really great. If you are still leaning into a traditional primer that's just gonna give the skin some quick moisture and really help the makeup application go a little bit more seamless and smooth, I think serums are the best. So I'm still the biggest fan of the Neutrogena Radiant Serum Primer. This one's got a little bit of pearl in the formula, so I love how this gives instant glow. And then the Maybelline Grippy Primer. This is the best gripping primer at the drugstore, because I feel like a lot of times, especially with the e.l.f. one, depending on what I use it with, it causes pilling. So I don't really reach for super heavy gripping primers, and the Jelly Pop is not the same. It's totally different. It's not the original one that I was in love with so many years ago. If we're talking gripping primers, I feel like the more time has gone on, I've actually preferred Milk's Hydro Grip over e.l.f. because it doesn't stay quite as sticky, and sometimes with the e.l.f. one, it's borderline like so sticky it causes patchiness in my makeup. So I like something a little bit more lightweight, like the one from Maybelline. This has a very subtle amount of pearl. It's honestly undetectable on the skin, so it's not going to give much luminosity. And you do actually want to be careful when you're using anything that's gripping. You want to put this all over the face, not just strategically on the face, because it will cause the makeup to only cling to the areas that you actually have the primer. So you want to get like in all the nooks and crannies of the face. The Maybelline one is very user-friendly. It's not as intense as e.l.f., but you still have that like slight tackiness, so the makeup sticks to it a little bit better. But if you don't want anything gripping, just go with the Neutrogena. This is the best at the drugstore. It's just such a nice lightweight serum primer. It's like a little bit absorbed into the skin. And then you really want to make sure you're giving your primer adequate time to set down, because if you go in a little bit too hasty and you start doing base right away, it's going to be patch city, and it's really hard to come back from a patchy base most of the time. I feel like you're better off starting off with a clean slate and starting from the beginning. That's just been my experience. It's really hard to fix a patchy base, especially when you're using things that are slightly more grippy. So Rimmel actually came out with this new product. This is the Multitasker. This is basically like Rimmel's answer to the Dior filter, Charlotte Tilbury, all those products. It's very similar. If you want to wear it underneath your makeup, I think you can go a couple shades lighter and use it more as a highlighting product. Like this one is in the shade Fair Light. I would use this underneath my makeup. And then if you're someone who wants to mix it into your makeup, I would go with a shade that's either slightly darker or the same shade as your skin tone. And for that, I would use Medium Deep. But this has been like the most exciting new base product. I really like the formula. It's very fluid and lightweight. I'm gonna go in with Fair Light, and you'll see how I just kind of apply this as a highlight, and then same thing, because we're using that gripping primer, we're gonna stipple this into the skin. It doesn't set down super quick, but don't wait around. Get in there and start blending it into the skin so that it melts in as you blend and it doesn't start drying down. It's very sheer, which I really like. That's why I say if you want to mix it in with your makeup, you can actually go a shade or two darker, because you can see it's not putting down a ton of color to the skin. So really nice light layer before you go in with your makeup. It's gonna peek out from behind your makeup, depending on how much coverage you wear. If you wear a little bit more full coverage, you'd want to do a little bit more, but I think a nice light layer just kind of gives you that lit from within glow. Now, in terms of base products, I really like these two. We've got the Revolution Skin Silk. Really nice, very lightweight, very matte, but a soft matte, so not chalky or dry. And then I love the Maybelline Lumi-Matte foundation. Both of these are good. I think that these are great wintertime options because I don't know about you, but in the wintertime, I'm usually wearing like the Rhode Barrier Butter or Tatcha Dewy skin cream. So I like to have something that's a little bit more on the matte side because my skin prep is usually very moisturizing and buttery. Or a good old classic, honestly, these are great, but I also think the Milani Conceal and Perfect, this is still a classic, and this has been something I've been liking even on days where I'm wearing like all my skin prep. Today, let's just use the Milani because I really like the coverage on this. So we're just gonna start off with one pump. I'm gonna use a Natasha Denona angled brush for this. Now I say I like the coverage on the Milani, but it's definitely one that can be sheared out and looks a little bit more natural, especially if you have a nice slippy layer. Full coverage foundations tend to blend out a lot easier and they won't look patchy. So you just wanna make sure the base is nice and hydrated, and then when you go in with, you can see the coverage is great on this, but then once you go in with your base foundation, you can really stretch a small amount of the product far across the skin and get it to look nice and natural. And I always like to use something softer, bristled with full coverage foundations because I find that I do a lot of buffing. So you wanna stipple and really push that foundation in and then gently graze the skin and buff. Today we're using shade 6A. This is a really good shade match for my skin. But yeah, I think the Milani is just like a really nice everyday foundation, and then always take it under the jaw. For concealers, you guys know I'm always gonna recommend this as my #1. This is the Neutrogena Radiant Cream Concealer. This is my absolute favorite. It reminds me so much of my favorite concealer of all time, which is the Kosas Revealer Concealer. But I also have been really liking the L'Oreal Skin Ink. Shocking, I know, because I have dry skin. I've seen most people say that they do not like the skin ink, that the skin ink does not work for them. I think it all comes down to prep. I feel like you really have to be extra moisturized for this, but the longevity on this is absolutely incredible. If I'm concealing my skin, I like the shade 265. And then if I want to brighten, I've been using the shade 100. So that's like a good level of dimension in the base. But a new one that I really like is the Revlon Glimmer Concealer. This is their brightening concealer, and it actually has a little bit of pearl in the formula, so I love how luminous it looks underneath the eyes, but it's also a really nice lightweight formula. And I know you think this too, but if you use a concealer that's too dry, especially on the under eye, I feel like it just always looks a little bit weird when it sets down. So if I'm gonna be putting the skin ink underneath my eyes, I always make sure to wear extra eye cream or even a little bit of Aquaphor. But I really like this Revlon one because it just adds a nice soft layer of glow. I do think it needs some marination time. Not all concealers do, but with the Revlon one, I feel like just letting it set down for like a minute or two gets it into that nice tacky state so that when you blend it, it really stays put and you get to actually like keep the coverage. So I feel like this is a good moment to go in and fill the brows. I really like this. This is the NYX Professional Blade shade. Really tiny, very comparable to the one that I love so much from Anastasia, but it's got the shape of the Glossier brow pencil, but it's still really nice and micro fine. So I guess it's more similar to the one from Glossier than Anastasia, but I don't use the Glossier one very much anymore. I haven't repurchased. The formula is like a little bit more wet than what I would like. It's just a little bit too creamy. I kept finding that the Glossier one would break on me. I like the Glossier one, but I prefer a drier formula like this or like the one from Anastasia. On its vertical, you're gonna get that really thin line like this, but then if you hold it on its horizontal, you're gonna get a thicker line. So you kind of get like 2 brow pencils in one. All right, now we can go in and blend. I'm gonna use a Lawless concealer brush. I feel like you guys are really going to like the way that this Revlon concealer blends out. It's not creamy. I wouldn't say it's like too thick and creamy. There's not really any concealer I can think of to compare it to in terms of the way it looks or the way it feels. It's not like a exact high-end dupe that I can think of. It's just a beautiful formula on its own, and that pearl looks really nice if you tend to like a little bit more of a glowy look on the face. Also, this concealer is luminous, but it is not dewy, so it doesn't stay tacky. It just adds a lot of really nice dimension to the base. Then I always go back in with whatever brush I was using for foundation, no extra product, but just blending this all in so that we look nice and seamless, and there's no harsh lines between where the concealer meets the foundation. Morphe came out with cream eyeshadows. These can also be used as eye primers. These are called the Solo Artist Priming Cream Eyeshadows. They really remind me of the Merit Solo Shadows. These are all matte, but side note, Merit also came out with shimmery cream eyeshadows. I'm so excited about those. I'll have to show those in a video to you. They're beautiful. But with the Morphe one, it's the same concept. It's a cream shadow. These are pigmented. They kind of threw me off. It looks like I haven't used them, but like a tiny bit really goes a long way. I like the shade Mixtape and Airplay. A flat shadow brush. Let's use a Mario E4. The excess off onto the back of my hand. Honestly, wild how pigmented these are. Just truly going like this. Just picking up a little bit. And look at the coverage it gives on the eyes. Like, it really goes like that. They do blend out kind of quick, so that's why I like to work in sections. And as you're applying, make sure you're feathering as well so that you don't get that harsh cream shadow line. Next, we're gonna go in with Mixtape. This is kind of the one that reminds me the most of like an in-betweener of Vachetta and Mid-Century from Merit. But again, as we're applying, we kind of like feather up and out. I think they dry down a lot more solid too than a MAC paint pot. Honestly, these don't crease. Sometimes the MAC paint pots crease on me. These give you a true like powder set down. And then just going in with the shade Remix from the Morphe Solo Artist Cream Shadows. But that's what I think is cool about these. You know, you can use them as an eyeliner, you can use them as an eyeshadow primer, or you can just wear them as matte cream shadows. These are definitely the most exciting eyeshadow launch in years for me at the drugstore. You guys know me, I'm not like a huge eyeshadow palette person. I don't really wear colorful eyeshadow ever. Like, I want good staple products that you can actually wear day to day, makeup that you'll actually use. And I feel like the Morphe cream shadows, genuinely the best eyeshadow launch in like probably the past 5 years at the drugstore, not an exaggeration. Bronzer is definitely a category at the drugstore where I feel like we need some new ones because I'm liking some of the newer launches, but I'm just going back to the drugstore bronzers that I know I like a lot. So for example, you guys know I always like to start off with a cream and then set it with powder. I'm back on the Milani Cheek Kiss. I like Spilling Tea. It's a really good all over bronze shade because it's not too dark. Milani one is amazing, but I'd love something new. You guys know how much I love the ones from Pixi. Some people really love those, some people really don't. It just kind of depends on how okay you are with makeup being a little bit more balmy. If you are okay with like a truly dewy bronze, I would say go with the Pixi, the On The Glow. So good. Or if you're willing to splurge a little bit more, the No. 7. I've talked about that a lot recently. I like that one. I feel like I've also been getting a lot of feedback from you guys saying that it's difficult to find. I was able to get my No. 7 off of Target.com, so I'll link it if I can. But if you're still not able to get your hands on the one from No. 7, which would be like my top recommendation for a drugstore bronzer, the Milani one is also really good. There's something about the No. 7 one that I like a little bit more. If you use powder bronzer to set your cream bronzer, I'm almost always gonna recommend the best, I feel like, is baked formulas. They just don't come off as intense as a proper bronzing powder, but bronzing powder works just as well. It's just like if you are looking for something new or you don't have a bronzer to set your creams with, try a baked one, because Milani has one too that's baked bronzer. That one's really beautiful, but the baked bronzers just tend to give a little bit more of that airbrushed, kind of like soft filter appearance to the skin, and I just lightly graze it over all the areas I've bronzed. And honestly, I feel like it's little swaps like that, like switching out a formula for something that's maybe a little bit more comparable with a product that you're using. So creams and bakes go really well together because the baked bronzer is gonna set it without totally transforming the finish or the tone of your bronzer. If you use a traditional setting powder, it could potentially make the bronzer look a little bit lighter, so it just kind of depends on what you're going for. So Revolution came out with these new blushes. They're called the Bouncy Blur Blushes. These are incredible. They're like a hybrid between a cushion blush and a cream and a powder. So they're definitely similar to like a MAC Glow Play type of situation. But the Revolution one, something I think about is interesting about these, I'm using the shade Paprika Pop. That's the one I like the most. It's kind of like a bronze pink. They also leave behind, at least in my experience, I want to actually wipe this off before it does anything, but they actually leave behind a little bit of a stain on the skin, so it almost lasts longer because of the stain. These are all pretty luminous in my opinion. There's a couple shades that don't show up quite as glowy, but overall, all the shades are pretty glowy. I like to just take a tiny bit, stipple it onto the cheek. You'll see there's like a little bit of glow. If you stipple, you're gonna get a much more natural, almost watercolor effect from the blush. And blush in general just looks a little bit more natural if you kind of stipple it into the skin and use a light hand. You're gonna get a really pretty, like soft, natural effect. And I just kind of knock whatever is left over on the brush all over the face. I love the glow this gives the cheek, but it's not sticky. It sets down to more of that powder finish, so you're not gonna be distracted by feeling like you're actually wearing a cream blush, but it melts into your skin like a cream blush and gives you the glow. So it's really the best of both worlds. It's a great product. Also, really quick before I forget, I'm gonna take a little bronzer and place that in the eye space. A little bit of highlight, still loving the Pixi On The Glow Super Glow. This one's in the shade Ice Pearl. Just take a little bit and place that on the nose. If you're wearing a really small amount of this product, it's not sticky. It's really when you start to kind of like build it on top of itself, that's when you're a little bit more aware that you're wearing a balm product, but a little bit, it's not gonna be sticky. You don't have to worry about it. You know how obsessed I am with this. I got the light pink version and I love it. This is the Infallible Blurfection Setting Powder. Can confirm, if you are a similar skin tone to me, the light pink does not show up pink on the skin. If you're deeper than me, there's a darker pink option as well, but it still gives a really pretty brightness. It's just a gorgeous soft brightening effect on the skin, so I take a little bit in the lid. I like using a puff to apply it, like these light pushing motions. And we can set the under eye, set the center of the face, basically powder anywhere you want to tone down shine. If I'm being totally honest with you, like 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna say splurge on the powder. I'm also gonna take like a little bit of this and just dust it on the face to kind of smooth everything out. But as I was saying, 9 times out of 10, I am gonna be the person that says powder is one of those products that I do think is worth splurging on, especially because it's such like an integral part of the makeup routine. But with the L'Oreal Infallible, I feel like this is the best at the drugstore. And I wanna show you the new L'Oreal Lash Mascara, but I've also really been liking this. I'll show you this in another video if you want. This is the Curl Fixing Lash Base from Essence. You can pair this with any mascara you want. It's got a little bit of a black tint to it, but it's not one of those white primers that's hard to blend in after you've applied it. Sometimes those white primers, they're difficult to hide all the white in the lashes. But with this, you can theoretically pair it with any mascara that you want, waterproof or not, and it just helps your lashes hold an even tighter curl throughout the day. And it's really easy to remove at the end of the day. You don't have to use like a proper eye makeup remover like I do, because I wear waterproof mascara. But this is amazing. I've really been liking this. I want to show you this mascara on its own so you can kind of see what it looks like without the added layer, because I do feel like this beefs up the lashes a little bit, so it might kind of skew the way the mascara looks. It actually definitely will, but you know what I'm saying. I just want to show you this on its own. So this is the new Extensionist from L'Oreal. It has a really nice shaped brush. It's like a mini comb because it's curved, and it gives you such pretty long lashes. Not a lot of volume. So if you don't like volume, you will like this. If you want length and really great separation, this is the mascara. So there's like one coat, you guys can see it. Then when you start to layer it on top of itself, and this is the trick. What you wanna do is start focusing on the ends of the lashes. So not so much the base, get, you know, a little bit on the base, but then the trick is, or at least my trick and the way I like to apply it, go right on the tips of the lashes. And you guys see how it's building on top of itself? And then same thing on the other eye, like wiggle at the base. Get a good base coat, if you will, on the lashes so that you've got all the product on there. Okay, and then build it on top of the tips. I feel like L'Oreal makes some of the best mascaras. What are we doing now? Okay, we're gonna set the brows. I'm gonna use the L'Oreal Brow Lamination. L'Oreal Brow Lamination has made it to my top 2. Okay, now we're gonna do some lips. I have a few new lip products to show you. Morphe recently came out with a bunch of new lip liners. There's 3 shades that I really like. A shade that I can cheat the size of my lips with and overline. So this first one is the Signature Lip Pencil in Makeup Talk. Apparently this is like a cult favorite. Makeup Talk, love that. I also really like Spiffy. There's Spiffy. And then this is called Rocksteady, which is a true like contouring shade. I'm gonna do Makeup Talk to start. They're super creamy, like really nice and creamy. They really do just kind of melt onto your lips. The glide is incredible. If you like a true creamy lip pencil, these are so good. No, but seriously, how perfect is that? That's Morphe Makeup Talk. I can see why everybody's obsessed with that. But like I said, if you're into more brownie tones, Spiffy and Rocksteady. Now there's two lip products. There's quite a few new lip products at the drugstore. I still want to have some time to test them. These are the ones I've been testing the longest. I mean, they're not exactly new launches, but NYX did come out with the Smushies matte lip balms. Although I do not like these on their own, because you know me, I have to have a gloss. The shade Snuggle Season is such a good color, and if you like the same lip colors I do, I'll give it to this. I'll wear this one on its own without gloss. So they're Snuggle Season. It's like a sheer, they honestly kind of feel like a Dimethicone face primer in a lip balm, but because of that, they smooth out the lines on your lips. The only shade that I'm in love with is Snuggle Season. There's also a clear that's okay, but ooh, if you've ever used the NYX Honey Lip Balm, the matte lip balm, it's a similar texture to that. It's sheer enough that your own natural lip color peeks out from behind it. Because of that primer-like formula, it smooths out the lines on your lips and it doesn't dry down. They stay movable, so you can always go like that and it's not gonna crack or, you know, completely come off in sheets like your typical matte lip products do. Now, I also really like these. These are the Phyto-Glow Lip Balm Shimmers. I am obsessed. These are beautiful, and I do like how the shimmer ones come with doe foots. Iconic. These are so good. Today I'm gonna do the shade Orbit. If you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, I've done a video swatching every single shade so you can see what they look like. This is such a good lip combo. Like, stop. It's such a good everyday trio. I'm actually gonna go run and grab the Morphe finishing powder because I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to show you how I like to use the Morphe finishing powders. The Morphe finishing powders come in a couple different shades. Today we're gonna do the Cloud Light in Sunrise, which is beige with bouncing yellow. Okay. You do wanna take this on something that's more rounded. I feel like that's the best effect with these. So this is an IT Cosmetics airbrush brush, that's really great, or an IT Cosmetics all over, oh wait, these are all, this is 143 and this is 141. They're part of the airbrush line. So those are a great option, or if you wanna lean into Sephora Pro, because I really do like the Sephora Pro brushes, 80 is a good option. Anything that comes to this like rounded taper is gonna be your best friend. I keep looking in my mirror over here, but I feel like applying it straight on for you is gonna give you the best effect on how to apply it. Because I want you to watch the brush. Like, watch the bristles of the brush as I'm applying the product. When you do the finishing powder, do you see how the brush is just grazing my face? I'm letting my brush do the work, and it's gonna give me a really seamless blend and a soft, subtle all over glow. You do have to kind of keep dipping back into the powder. But okay, straight ahead. I want you to watch the brush, but see how it's just grazing the skin? Do a little bit on the forehead. You can, if you want, I'll let it slide. You can stipple the finishing powder in gently, but to really kind of activate that glow and get it to give you that seamless, truly soft focus, dare I say Charlotte Tilbury type of glow, we graze and gently buff like this. You can even grip the brush closer to the bristles if you want like a little bit more control as you're buffing, or if you want to kind of let the brush do completely all the work, grip the brush at the back of the handle and just barely go like that. It's undeniable how filtered the skin looks with this. You can use it to set your makeup. It's not gonna give you the best longevity or the best wear time if you use it as the only thing to set your makeup. That's really why it's like, in my opinion, more of a finishing, slightly brightening powder. And honestly, even with that, you still have to go in and do some finishing touches, it can kind of slightly take away certain products. So just to bring up the intensity, I would go in, do your finishing touches. We're gonna do finishing touches, and then we're going to do the setting spray. So I'm just using the little freckle pen. This is Rudy Berry and Bugle. I love this. This is the best one. I think it's always good to go back and add powder than over powder. Over powdering is just like going in too hasty with your base before skin prep and primer have set. If you over powder, so much more difficult to bring the skin back to life than it is to just take a step back, wait till the end of your routine, go in, add a little bit more primer, or not primer, add a little bit more powder on the areas that you think you need it. Today for setting mist, we're just gonna do the Milani Make It Last. This is amazing. It's just gonna kind of rehydrate that base, get that makeup nice and seamless, fused with your skin. If you really are concerned about longevity and keeping those products intensity and the products to really stay as long as possible, I would always recommend the L'Oreal 6-Second Mist, the red one, but the Milani is great for just day to day if you don't want something quite as intense. But if you want this to last all day or all night, the L'Oreal is the one I'm gonna say you need to get. Okay, and that is the finished full face of Drugstore. A lot of new stuff, some not so new stuff. If there are new products at the Drugstore that you really wanna see me review, please leave them in the comments, let me know. And if I've already tried it, I'll tell you what I think about it. But I think that this is like a great everyday, a little bit of extra steps, but it's really gonna get your drugstore makeup looking perfected, high-end. Like, you can't tell me that this entire face, being all affordable, all drugstore, it hits. Drugstore makeup has been extra good lately. I feel like there's so much good stuff at the drugstore right now. I'd love to know what you're loving from the drugstore right now. I'd love to know what you're loving from Sephora and Ulta right now. I feel like we're in that transition period right now where we're really moving into fall products. So I definitely feel like doing a fall makeup essentials or like a fall winter makeup essentials video pretty soon. But other than that, I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching this one. Bye guys.